Hello everyone, this is Darker Joe, and today we need to talk about the balance patch. So I originally had it planned. I did a first impressions of me going over it, but like the 50-minute thing of me ranting on it, kind of. I just think it's better for me to just do it and do a video now, after a few days. So now, actually, after looking through it after a day or two, let me just say this: this is probably the worst balance patch we've had in at least a few years, if not like ever, honestly. Because like only so Remnant Violet and Sage Vivian, I think were great buffs, right? I think Vivian did take they took a few things off of Vivian though, but these two were great buffs. Tierra is a great buff too. Mercedes is actually a really good buff. But this is what's bullcrap. Okay, so you have Yuna, who was very hard nerfed. I don't care what people say. This is a nerf, and I'll go over it when we get to her. Camila is a nerf. Aether is, honestly, the way they worded it sounds like a nerf because they didn't specify that it increases HP scaling. They just dropped the attack scaling off of him. But even if it wasn't, even if they say they do increase the HP scaling of it, like it's not going to do anything. I know is we'll get to it in it, and then like really, pretty much the only thing in this patch that's good is going to be the two ML5s and Interior. Oh, and Mercedes. Mercedes buff is actually pretty good too, actually. So, but yeah, everything else, like the fact you just nerfed two units, actually nerfed them, and pretended it's a buff. No, it's not a fucking buff. Okay. Especially because like I like Camila. I like using Yuna. Alright, we'll go over it. So, Remnant Violet. So, the only thing he got, well, I'm going to say only thing. He got is he has increased damage dealt on S1. His S1 does more damage, and his S3 does more damage, which is kind of scary, but like it makes sense though, because everyone's pretty much going to out tank his damage. So, his S1, S3 got more damage, and he's got evasion built into his kit now. So now he can have his 50% evasion into his kit, so he is no longer he's no longer easily countered by units that have non-attack strips, like Conqueror Lilius or AOL or Angel of Light. So, which also means that the Milim is the only unit, I think the only unit in the game now that has evasion buff. So does that mean Milim is going to have? Are they going to remove Milim's evasion buff and then give her 70% evasion in her kit? I mean, in her Milimi? They should, though. But no, yeah, but like, this is fine. Now, Sage Vivian. So, her S1 does more damage now. They took the scaling attack, like, how it was like every time you use S3, it increases her attack. Which it did stack up to 3 times. But yeah, it increases her attack. It would stack up to 3 times. They moved that to her S1, so now the stack is on her S1. Increase the damage on the S1. They made it so her passive starts her off with 5 focus, and then if she's at 3 or higher, she's immune to debuffs. And then they increase the percentages to proc her passive, her 70% damage reduction to 30% now. Which is good because, like, so I remember some people were saying, like, sometimes your knight will be able to, like, proc this easily and make you waste a stack. So now it's like, well, yeah, you now like, say, like, an arrow or something like that might hit you with an S3 if the arrow has, like, attack buff type of thing, and easily proc this to make you waste one of your stacks. Now it's, like, a bit more harder for a healer, a support, or a tank to do this much damage to proc it. So, because obviously, if you're getting hit by a DPS unit, it doesn't matter if it was 25% or 30%. It'll still proc off of it. So, yeah. And then her S3 is a bit kind of like a hit or miss here, though, because like, so the damage dealt, she gets more damage dealt based off of with more enemies. Because I don't think she had that. No, she didn't have that. And then she heals based off of her attack instead of the target's max health, and she loses a crit damage buff for the whole team. This is the one that's really hard to hit. That's a pretty hard hit, but I think this is a good. And that's right. And her cooldown goes from 6 turns to 4 turns, but she also loses the chance. She also loses the 1 focus off of her S3. So, but I think overall this would be good. This might make her more viable, but this is still, and she still can't be played against like in a team of like Solitaria or ML Politis. It's like it's still gonna be kind of rough to use her. You have to definitely pick her late, but having immunity to their opener is pretty huge. Having 5 stacks immediately so that you can actually have a lot more. They'll have to hit you a lot more to start hitting your damage type of thing. And then having the stacking attack go on her S1, which is much easier to proc, especially if you have her with like dual attackers. Then you can really easily get that. This is actually really solid though. This would definitely make her much better. I actually run a tanky. I run a tanky Sage Vivian, so my Vivian would actually really like this build. Would really like this buff. Yuna. All right, so Yuna has been nerfed. I don't care what people say. So, all right. So she used to be able to push allies. Let me just make sure I'm on time. Okay. So she used to be able to push allies or herself by like 6% and then her allies by 2% CR per enemy hit, which you can also raise it up to 7% and 3% with the EE, which is the one I use. Well, the ones I use more or less, and then the damage down increases. So basically, I think this. So what is she getting? So she's getting a flatline CR push now. So I'm guessing it's because so that it's a lot less confusing for people, because it's not like people are look at this and do math in their head like it's just gonna be enough to push up higher. So now she does a flatline amount, 15% for herself, 5% for her team, and they're increasing her damage, which is probably to make up for the fact that they're also removing all of this because. Yeah, they're removing damage to increase proportional caster's speed. So they're removing her speed scaling, and then they're removing if three or fewer enemies does more damage. So this has got to be a massive increase because she's losing 2 forms of like damage modifiers off of it. So this has got to be a massive buff. And no, don't do this whole, we're going to buff the S1 by 0.05. And that'll be good. I'm like, because no, you just drop 2 modifiers. And then then the S2 and S3, so S2 right here, buffs all allies with a drone, giving your all allies attack and speed buff for 3 turns and grants an extra turn with a 4-turn cooldown. This is the only part that's actually really good. This is the only thing that's worth keeping off this challenge. Off this change, like that's fine off this buff. And then here's the S3, which is she used to be able to automatically crit, and well, obviously this makes sense. So the extra turn would be basically moved to S2 is fine, but this right here, a successful attack resulting in a critical hit, they removed that. So now it's just attacks with all enemies. It just attacks enemies and just AoE damage that if there are 3 or fewer enemies, it does more damage. This makes her one of the most basic S3s in the game. Like not even like this is like nothing. Just attacks all enemies. Look how small this S3 is. Remember, we have to get 5 focus for this now. We need to get 5 focus, and this is what it is. She now has those, like, the weakest focus S3 in the entire game now. Because, like, everything else has, this does this, and this, when you have max focus. Like, look at stuff like Shuno, and back when Shuno had to use focus and stuff like that, even that was, like, you put them to sleep for 2 turns. Which was pretty strong, because the 2-turn sleep was strong. So it's like, you had to, back then, before they removed her focus, you had to build up to it. Now it's, like, more damage. I mean, it's just an AoE damage. And it wasn't even that crazy of a damage, too. Especially now that you remove the automatically crit. Because there's 2 ways that I think Yuna could have been built. Where I had Yuna built throughout the years. I've always had her on 2 different builds. I either had her on a mid speed, like a 230 speed, with like 3k to like 3.5k attack, no crit, like 250 plus crit damage, and then the rest in bulk. because I just did like back then I would just go like I didn't care if my S1 didn't crit. I was just using her as as a buffer and someone who does chip damage on S1s, and then if she survives, which I had her bulky, when she got her S3, it would like destroy people because I didn't have to waste so much stats in crit rate. So instead of like I don't know giving her automatic crit on S1, which you should have done, you should have capped the automatic crit on the S3 and then gave her automatic crit on S1. That would have been huge. But no, you want to nerf her CR push by like a lot actually, and then you want to remove everything from her S3 to make her one of the worst S3s in the entire game, which is it's just AoE damage. That's it. It's AoE damage that gets out damaged by everyone, and it requires you to have 2 or 3 turns before prior hand. You need to work 2 or 3 turns for her to use S3, and then it's just going to do less damage than other units that can just press S3 and just immediately do the amount of AoE damage. Like, okay, let's see example. Let's see. What even is her attack 3 modifier? Oh wait, I'm in Soul Weaver. What is her attack 3 modifier? If it has it on here. 1.5. Okay, so that is a pretty strong S3. 140% damage against 2 targets, 160 increase against 1. So it is a really strong AoE damage. But still, it's like you have to work for that to the point like other people could probably do 1.2, 1.3 AoE damage for free anytime they want. But you have to waste 3 turns to get this. Unless you combo her with like, dual attackers and stuff. And by then you're just gonna get killed. Because you have to waste so much you're gonna waste so much of your other stats now into a crit rate, and then you still have to keep high damage, high attack, high crit damage, and then preferably speed, and then you're gonna be super squishy. And Guy in Light is this thing, but it's like, congrats, that's just gonna get hit by one AoE to knock her out of stealth, and then just popped immediately because you now had to go on like a crit rate necklace now, and then either have no crit damage or no bulk. Like you just made her into like, I guess PvE, but like you 100% just killed her any versatility that she might have had in PvP. And then the funny thing is right here. So again, like I said, you got rid of the 2 good freaking exclusive equipment from her. You got rid of the 2 good ones. Like you have this one, which is the one I use a lot. These are the 2 I use actually, both of them. So you got rid of this one, which is the one I use right now, technically. And it's like, increases herself by an extra 5% CR on the S1. So now she pushes herself by 20 and the allies by 5%. Like, okay, well, with the old one, you could have pushed yourself by 7% per target, and then the allies by 3% per target. You would have pushed, if you would have AoE'd all 4 units in an RTA match, you would have pushed yourself 28% CR push, and your allies 12% CR push. 28% self, and then and 12% allies for what? 20% self, so you lose 8% on yourself and 7% for your team. All for this to make it look like it's just more, more clean and stuff. The only thing I say that this change is good for is like if you wanted to use this into like Fire Expo, right? Because that's the one that gives you like 4 times higher CR push. And that's why using units that have like 20% CR push on their S1 is really good. I can see that because then you push yourself 80% CR push, and like the allies like 20%. So like, okay, I can see that being okay into like Fire Expo. Are you strictly making her a Fire Expo unit now? Like she's only a Fire Expo unit? Because that's literally the only thing I can see her being used now. Like, I don't think she's going to be good in any other PvE content. She's 100% can't be used in PvP now, outside of one specific way, which is what this is right here. Upgrades unaffected by cooldown, increase or decrease effects. So basically, you're making her as a semi-opener now. She's either an Fire Expo unit, or she's used strictly as like a opener that just gives your team attack buff and speed buff, and then small CR push for her allies, like 5%. You know what could also do better than this? I mean, sure, it won't be as fast as Yuna though, but you know what you could also do that does this exact same thing that you're trying to do? You could just build specialty change Inos and do literally the same thing. Inos would give everyone attack buff and speed buff, and it would push your highest attack unit, which is probably who you really wanted to push anyways, by 20% CR. And it's an AoE like this though that does not proc counters. Inos just basically does what you're trying to make Yuna do. The only difference is, one, Yuna has Guiding Light, but who cares, because Inos is also a heavy ER unit, so unless they have Ignore Effect Resistance, you're not going to get hit anyways. And two, you know, Inos isn't as fast as Yuna, because Yuna's like 112 speed, or like 112 speed plus a 10 speed EE. Whereas Inos, I think, is 114 with her specialty change. So yeah, Yuna's faster. But then you're just going to proc this, you know, get an extra turn. First of all, you're going to use S2 here, get countered by a Fire Politis, get countered by Celine, into an extra turn. I mean, I want to say get countered by Moon Bunny, but actually Yuna here could actually counter Moon Bunny though, because you get the extra turn and then you just S1 and prop the skill modifier. So technically, this change doesn't get screwed over by Moon Bunny, but it does get screwed over 100% by Politis and Celine, and it will still get countered by every unit in the game that has counter. So congrats, you just gave Abyssal Euphine and Candy and Navy Captain Landy potentially counters to half your team's health, and potentially, you know, it made them get higher to their S3. All of which, you know, Landy probably does even more damage than actually, you know what? Yeah, I gotta see that. Does Landy do more damage? No, there's no way Landy does more damage than okay, no. Well, no, she does. She might be 1.0, but this is 60% pen. There's no way that this does not do more damage than a Yuna. So she probably does more damage than Yuna, because the 60% pen is on top of it. Because that would take 1.0 attack with 60% pen over just a 1.5 base, because that's going to do a lot more damage. So yeah, so Candy is even easier, much quicker to use, and can proc off of her turn, and has higher S3 damage. So yeah, Yuna is a massive nerf, especially to the one way I have her built and stuff. I switch around. I sometimes use this gear on like Fire Shuri. So I'm kind of back and forth though. But like, this is one of the ways I have her built. Pretty bulky, 256 speed on counter set, and with the EE that pushes herself and her allies by 1%. So that means now her S1. Yep, and her S1 attacks and then pushes pushes herself by 7% per target and her allies by 3% per target. So again, like I said, it's 28% on her S1. She pushes herself by 28% CR, and she pushes her allies by 12% CR. So basically, at this speed, first of all, you can outspeed some slower teams, and if you don't, they attack you in AoE. She pushes the team up, because at 256 speed, if she procs a counter, don't matter how fast their bridge is, a 28% CR push on 256, it will guarantee the next turn, the next person to go. So but that basically could destroys them now. I mean, you could say, well, it still push herself by 20% once a new balance change happens, but again, the allies are only going to get pushed up by 5% now, so it's a massive nerf to her. Sometimes I'll build some attack and crit damage on here, but I want more of a full speed with some decent bulk. And this is just there for when I do press S1, I have a chance of Death Break. I know it doesn't work on counters, but I don't think it works on dual attacks either, right? No, not even on dual attacks, but still, yeah. This is just a massive nerf. I know there's not many people using Yuna, but this should not go through. Alright. That was that's the main one I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to try to speed through this. because I didn't mean to spend too long on that. All right, Soteria. Okay, so she's losing the crit damage. It will increase damage dealt, but she's getting a damage dealt, increased proportional target's max health. And they're basically doing that same thing for the S3. They are decreasing the damage of the S3 though, but they are giving her damage dealt, increase the target's max health. And then they are increasing the damage of her S2. This allows her way better to handle like unrecorded history and be a farmer for you and stuff. So this is great. This one is 100% like a good buff because it allows her to be a better tank buster too with this. So not tank buster, boss killer. She's a boss killer now with this. She might even be useful, like really. She might be really strong into Abyss now, potentially. So yeah. Well, I mean, assuming the bosses don't have any kind of immunity to this though. But like, yeah. So this should be a lot more better for newer players and for just PvE general. So great, because she's a PvE unit, perfectly fine. That's a good buff. Mercedes is a really good buff too as well. It is a lot better than you think too, because like, okay, so they're increasing the damage for S1, they're increasing the damage for S3, kind of. So her S3 is a critical hit will deals increased damage. They're basically giving her that ability. They're just giving her that damage and removing that part. So now you're just doing that much damage. So I think it's like usually like 20% more. It's like a 20% more damage. They're probably just going to add it into that. And then right here on the S2, so it says damage dealt increase. They're probably using that as oh yes, okay, no. So here it is. Damage dealt increased, which is probably gonna be this much. They're probably taking the Soul Burns damage and putting it into the new S2 damage. Also, they are removing this though. I think, yeah, they are removing the you do more damage for fewer enemies. So maybe they're adding that with this too. Even if they don't though, even if we only get the extra damage from this into this and not this, that's fine because they're removing this part, which is like, well, they're changing this part, so now it says right here, when activated this way, Dimensional Rupture deals decreased damage and can be activated once. So now it's, if you have attack buff when you use the S2, or if the S2 procs off of like Magic for Friends or something like that, it will just grant you the extra attack with the same skill and the same damage. Because like this reduced damage on the secondary S2 is a lot weaker, so this is a huge amount of damage boost. So Mercedes is going to do a lot more damage, especially when we see how much increase every one of these damage dealt increases are. Camila. So Camila is the one I use a lot here and there too. I don't think I have her built right now, but I do like to build her, and I do use her in RTA. This is a massive nerf for RTA as well. We're kind of killing off one of her things too. So they're removing her skill nullifier. Like that's the huge nerf. Why remove her skill nullifier? And you're only going to give her one extra turn on the attack buff for her passive, or for her S2. So now she'll buff herself and now every 3 turns. But why did you have to get rid of the skill nullifier? This is what I'm saying though. Like it's whatever. If you would have just added her that extra turn, then people wouldn't really complain. But why are you getting rid of the skill nullifier? It doesn't make her broken in any form. It doesn't make her broken in RTA. She's barely played in RTA. It doesn't make her broken in PvE because it's like sometimes she desperately needs it to survive and be useful. Not to mention, depending on what PvE content you're fighting, you might not even get the full 3 turns value off of it anyways, because the enemy you might be fighting might also have a lot of strips. And especially in RTA, this is definitely not lasting 3 turns because everything in the game now strips in RTA. So unless you use her specifically into units, bosses or someone that don't strip at all, or has really long cooldowns into their strip, then this is a nerf, because you're probably never going to proc. You're never going to have the last 3 turns anyways, and you're losing skill nullifier for nothing. Oh, but no, that's not fine. We're losing 1 turn on the S3, but it's doing 5% more damage. Because everyone who uses Camila uses her for damage and builds her damage, right? No, no, no. It's not built on a decent bulky team. She's not built bulky with effectiveness and a lot of speed just for the attack buff into Death Break and dual attacks. No, we build her damage. No, we fucking don't. Literally, that's the dumbest thing. Why? She does. In PvP, we never even use S3, and I'm sure most people doesn't even use S3 in PvE content unless you desperately need to, and there's a way to and now kill a unit type of thing. Or maybe if you have no health left and you absolutely need to get the full health heal from the S3, then sure. But they don't build her damage though; they just build her with effectiveness and some bulk and speed. Aether's the one's like, really? So they've removed his attack scaling off of both of their heals. This is what I'm saying, like, it might just be a nerf actually, because keep in mind, they did not, it's an Aether now reliably heals and grants barriers to all allies. Well, that's what he always did. Versus the recovery amount of barrier strength, okay, which is effective barrier stats have been adjusted to uniformly increase proportion of the target's max health. Does that mean you increase the amount the S3 heal these heal for the HP scaling part? Because it looks like the only thing you really did was remove the attack scaling and then make it so the barrier is HP scaling. Also, you could tell that this whole buff thing for Aether and kind of the whole entire balance patch was massively half-assed, because if they actually cared to buff Aether and make Aether a good, like, beginner friendly healer and stuff, other than that, they would have looked through, I don't know, his imprints and changed his imprints too. Because I'm gonna tell you something, Aether now has the worst imprints in the game now, because it literally makes no sense. It's self-attack now. His self-imprint is self-attack, which now has absolutely nothing to do in his kit, because he doesn't scale off attack anymore. You could have changed it to, I don't know, flat HP, 500 flat HP, or 390 or 490, whatever's the usual 3-star version of it. Nope. We're going to keep it as attack, because now Aether really wants attack, even though you're moving all attack values off of him. Like, why? If you were going to do that, change his imprint, give him something else, at least notify us that you're actually buffing the actual value of the HP healing. Because with how, like, quickly you ran through, how quickly you looked like you just ran through, you just made this balance patch and stuff. For all I know, you might just looked at Aether and said, oh, well, Aether scales off of a target's max health and Caster's HP, Caster's attack. That might confuse new players. We're not going to increase the amount of heals that Aether does based off their max health. No, we're just going to move the attack scaling part. And even though it'll be less healing overall, the fact that new players won't be confused on how to build Aether, it'll be a buff overall, because now people are going to start building him tanky and stuff instead of building attack or something like that. Because I know you guys are actually going to increase the HP value. You have to. Like, you can't be that stupid that you won't increase the actual HP value of the heals and just remove the attack scaling. So I'm assuming you're actually going to increase the HP value of the healing, right? But is that going to actually increase enough to the point that, Aether heals more than what he currently does? Because it's like 45% of self-attack. If I were to use it in a actual plus 60, and I want to use it in like RT or any other content that's level 60 content, I'm probably going to have, because the imprint plus artifact, you're probably looking at about 920, something like that attack before even adding on gear. The weapon will still give you 525 no matter what, if you're talking, I-90. So you're probably talking about 1400 attack And you know, like 1400. Oh, that's a like 1400 attack. Actually, that's times what? Nope, 45%. Why is that 4 not working? Like, okay, only 630, but still, 630 extra healing off of like 1400 attack. That's including like no sub. Like 1400 attack is just assuming an artifact and a weapon, more or less. Right? So, are you gonna add more of that so that it heals more? Like, I don't know. I just knowing Smilegate here and how quickly and how like much it looks like they just half-assed this whole balance patch. I wouldn't doubt it if they just removed it and just said, okay, that's a buff. Who's the next unit to work on? Oh, Camila. Oh, let's remove Skin on Fire and pretend like she does more damage. That's a buff. I get it. I get that you want to not ruin the World Championship, right? But at the same time, isn't that the reason why we delayed the balance patch for 2 weeks anyways? Because you didn't want it to affect the Worlds. But even so, you could have gave everyone like roughly this kind of balance level. Like you could have just did that, gave like, you know, like this kind of quality of buffs to everyone. Why'd you have to nerf Yuna and Camila and, like I said, potentially Aether? Or even like Tyria levels, right? You could have just went through units like, oh, who hasn't been buffed in a while? Who needs something else? We'll just give more damage, or like maybe one more utility buff to random units that throughout the thing. Oh no, we want to buff all the free units. Okay, so like yeah, like the FST, I understand, 100%, that's a buff. Mercedes, 100%, that's a buff too, and that's like, sure. But like you potentially just ruined Aether, or slightly made Aether better for like the 2 days that people are going to be playing Aether in the beginning of the game anyways, because people are going to they're going to get Angelica or Momo, and even a non-specialty change Momo is better than Aether. So they're going to get either Angelica or Momo, or even a Katie's, and just drop Aether immediately after like a day or two. So what's the point of buffing Aether? Anyways, look, I like Aether. I use Aether sometimes in RTA as for a troll, but if you're going to buff him, actually buff him to be good in other stuff. If you're going to say, oh, I want to buff him to be better for new players, they're going to drop him the second they get one of the other 3 easy Soul Weavers. And that's not including the fact that anyone who actually pays attention to stuff, they might just go for Destina through their selected summons, and then they'll drop Aether again. Like, people are going to have Aether for the very first, like, day. Not even day. For just the very first few missions, and then they're going to drop Aether. What's the point of buffing specifically for those people? Like, if you were going to buff Aether to be, like, to prepare for a specialty change, or to buff Aether to be better in different content that's not just for free players, not for new players, then sure. But if you're just buffing him to make him like slightly better for new players, what was the point? There's 4 other Soul Weavers that they're gonna drop him for. You just wasted a spot in the balance patch for a unit that's gonna see like maybe one more person in the world play it longer than like 5 minutes. And that's the same situation I feel with these artifacts too. Like, there's so many weak artifacts you could have done. If you didn't want this to affect the World Cup, you could have buffed other artifacts, 4-star artifacts that needed it, 5-star artifacts that needed it. No, you're gonna buff 3-star artifacts because that's easy to get, so the new players would want it. First of all, you're gonna tell people you want people to get plus 30 of these artifacts and waste all their resources for crap 3-stars that they're going to drop the second they get something better, which is going to be very quickly, because even in 3-star versions, there's still a lot of good 3-star artifacts. Actually good 3-star artifacts. Like, okay, let's see. Watch. Hell, even Aqua Rose would have been better than half that stuff. Chance to get a barrier when attacked. Yeah, you could have buffed this. Maybe made this higher percent, 20%. 50% chance to grant 50% chance to grant a barrier for the caster equivalent to 20% of their max health when attacked. Boom. You made it 20%. It would have been a solid. You made it 10% to 20%. That you made it a solid new player friendly artifact, which actually wouldn't be terrible. People would go, hey, you know what? I can see yourself using this maybe in the future. It'd be kind of cool. Nope. Ascending Axis buff change was the only one that I think was decent because, you know, when in an early game crit rate is kind of hard, so I give you this one. I think this change is like decent, but like these three, really? I mean, yeah, maybe 20% attack when your health is 50% or more. I could see that with some kind of burn units you might use in the future. But like this kind of stuff, could you imagine if as a new player you wasted charms to upgrade like Goblin's Lamp in the future, and then in the future you find out how bad this is, and you're like, oh, I just wasted all those charms. I mean, I know it'd be a lot. It won't require as much charms because 3 stars don't require as much. But you're like, I wasted all those charms for this. Or you could have just waited maybe a few hours or a few like minutes, and you would have pulled a better 3-star or 4-star artifact. You could have used that and got better. Because like even like I said, even 3-star artifacts, like I said, Aqua Rose would have been good. Butterfly Mandalin's is really trolly, but you know what? I would take this over the new buff 3-star artifact. This is actually kind of funny. You could have buffed this a 12% chance for an extra turn. One attack, boom. It would have been pretty good. I have a plus 30 Butterfly Mandolin too, so please buff it. But like, when Curved Compass wasn't that, yeah, effectiveness? I mean, okay, that's not really what a new player would care about, but, you know, obviously everyone knows Daydream Joker, so I'm not, yeah, everyone knows how good that is. But like, yeah, you could actually have good 3-star artifacts. Was this decent? Increases defense when health is 20% or more. I mean, yeah, hey, you know what? That's actually not bad, kind of. Better than half the other. You might just see this and you're like, oh, that's better than the other artifacts. Yeah. Tonfa's basically wannabe portrait, right? Yeah, it's free. It's 3-star free. That so anyone who wants those artifacts, no, they're this better off just using this. Just upgrade this. This is basically portrait, but it's for free. Actually, 16% damage dealt is higher than is about the same amount as the other like stuff like Merciless Glutton. The 16% damage dealt. This matches a 5-star artifact's damage increase. So Tonfa's pretty good. So anyone who wants any newer players that want to work on a 3-star artifact that that actually can go into later than later than the first day of content, Tonfa's good. Labyrinth Cube, like there's 3-star artifacts that are actually somewhat good, and I can see you either buffing them slightly or just using them over Oathkey, or just using them over the other 3-star artifact. The new 3-star artifact, Besect for Axe here, maybe, right? These do not bother ever. Like, what's the point? You just wasted artifacts of this because they're especially this one. This one's the biggest troll. When enemy is defeated, there's a chance to get 1 soul. Oh my god. You know how great that is? That means if you're playing, because most areas have three like waves, and the third wave usually is the boss. Like the first 2 waves, if they have 5 enemies each, and you have a plus 30 Goblin's Lamp, you kill the first 2 waves and you get 10 souls, assuming there's 5 enemies on both waves. That means that is higher than a plus 0 book. Or the same as a plus 0 book. Wow. So a plus 15 book is 15 though. It's just Candlestick. I mean, I think even this was good. Wasn't this after attacking chance? Yeah, even that's pretty good. That's right, they nerfed it, but it's still good. What's Sword of the Morning? Actually, well, maybe not, but so there's actually decent 3-star artifacts. Nope, we're gonna buff those. We're gonna make sure these aren't better than the other 3-star artifacts. So there are new player friendly artifacts. First of all, new players barely even understand how important souls are, so they're probably not ever gonna want to build that anyways. I don't know. Basically what I'm saying is you're doing this to like not affect the World Cup, and you're doing this all strictly for new players. But like anyone, once they realize how like bad these are, they're not going to bother using it like immediately. Or if they watch videos and then they hear people say this artifact or this unit is bad, they're just immediately going to drop it the second they can. They're not even probably going to touch these artifacts. Because especially anyone who actually watches videos, type of thing, will go, oh, so I need Daedric Joker for sure, and I can use stuff like Tonfa for if I need a 3-star artifact for damage. Or I could just, and then I could just wait until I get a event artifact in the future that can be better than like everything else here. Or they pull a 4-star class-based artifact and it will be better than that. Because obviously once they realize how good Arius is, or how good like Adamant Shield is, they're just going to go for that on their knights. So you're wasting all this time and a balance patch. We waited, 10 weeks? We waited 10 weeks for this. Ridiculous. I'm saying this right now. If the next balance patch, because like they're using an excuse, oh, we want this to be for new players. You want this to help new players out, and we don't want to affect the World Cup. Okay, well, with next balance patch, you have no excuse. Go all out. If I see another one of these bullcrap balance patch, I might just straight up quit the game. Because the only thing I care for, the only two things I'll look forward to is, well, three things I look forward to is either is usually like a new limited unit type of thing, that a unit I care for, but you're never gonna give Lilibet any kind of love anymore. So I just lost faith in that. So yeah, you're never get Lilibet buffs or a skin or a new limited or whatever. You're just gonna give it to all random ass units now. So I lost care to that. Like there are two things is balance patches to, again, hopefully be able to buff other units that might be useful, make the meta more interesting or fun. Sure, these two might be fun, but that'll be it. And the other thing was special changes, but we're already like 6 months behind again. You do 1 or 2 special changes a year now. How are you ever gonna you released more 3-stars this past 3 months than you did special changes in the past 2 years? Because you released Bernard, you released the 2 twins. I could have sworn you released another unit within the past 3 or 4 months. Wasn't there a unit that came out recently right before? I don't know about Laya. Laya came out before, I think. But even just those 3, there's about as much special changes we've got in the past 2 years. Because I think only thing we only got like 2 last year, right? It was Inos. We got Christie at the beginning of the year, and who was before Inos? I don't even remember because it's been that long. But it was someone else. That's 3. I think we only got 2 special changes last year, and we got 1 special change at like early January or February. So it's already been 6 months. Anyways, like I said before, if they're not going to give us a better balance patch next balance patch, which is, I don't know when that's going to be, because again, that's been pushed back. Well, I think it's 8 weeks from now still, right? I don't know if they pushed it back another 2 weeks on top of it, but yeah, then I'll probably just quit. Like, I'm already playing Zenless Zone Zero. I'm already enjoying that game more, and soon Uma Musinet's coming out. So like, and then Shadowverse next one's coming out. If this next balance patch isn't interesting or fun, or they don't drop anything that hypes me up before then, I'll probably just quit. But to then, I'll see you guys next video.